Shipper-carrier rate negotiations are a tug-of-war at the best of times. But in the face of a deep recession followed by a slow recovery, they have too often turned nasty. Shippers are pressed to keep the lid on rate increases as long as they remain uncertain about the future demand. Carriers, meanwhile, need to rescue their profit margins from the carnage of the recession. Are we doomed to be stuck in acrimony till the economy regains its normal strength? Or is there a better way forward, even now? To find out, I spoke to leading motor carrier and shipping executives during a panel session specifically dedicated to rate negotiations at our recent Surface Transportation Summit, a one-day event presented in partnership with Dan Goodwill and Associates. The Shipper Carrier Rate Panel discussion, sponsored by Shaw Tracking, brought together Michael Tan, Vice President of Supply Chain and Transportation with Hudson's Bay Company, Brian Springer, Vice President, Transportation, Eastern Canada, Loblaw Companies, Wesley Armour, President of Armour Transport, and Dan Einwechter, CEO, Challenger Group of Companies. Before moving forward, however, I asked the panelists to take a look backward to outline the key issues and challenges that brought both shippers and carriers to this point. In this show, we will focus on what our two shipper representatives had to say about how the recession changed their transportation strategies. We start with Michael Tan from Hudson's Bay and also this year's CITA Supply Chain Executive of the Year.
My general philosophy is that a relationship where one party is struggling to make money and hating the partnership is really not a healthy and sustainable partnership or relationship. So beating down vendors for a couple of points really has no good long-term impact for me. That having been said, we certainly were pressured to cut our costs. One of the first things we did was apply more sophisticated procurement expertise to our transportation services. So yes, we did hire procurement consultants, but we also beefed up our analytics and negotiation skills and tightened up the details of our contract terms and conditions. But secondly, it also forced us to re-examine the transportation modes that we were deploying while ensuring that we had the proper people in place and processes and systems to support this new operation. But I think more fundamentally, from an overall supply chain perspective, and having taken on the supply chain group, I had the luxury of going beyond just transportation. It forced us to explore ways to maximize sales as well, to really segment our businesses and the departments within the businesses, and in turn completely revamp our transportation strategy to support each. So moving fashion for the Bay was entirely different, as we quickly learned, than moving home products for Zellers or Home Outfitters.
Loblaw's Brian Springer concurred that the recession forced a much more in-depth look at transportation costs and how they were applied across his entire company.
One of the things that was really prevalent in our business, we were a very decentralized business, and one of the downfalls of that is you have regional cost centers accountable to their own P&Ls, and they really don't look at the greater good. And so one of the things we had to do was become a lot more centralized in our business. And we also, had to look internally in terms of how we were structured in terms of own fleet versus 3PL. Did we have the right balance? Even within our own fleet, did we have the right gear? Were we spec'd right? Did we have the right labor models in play? And the 3PL carriers that we deal with, do we really collaborate with them as well as we should? Are we a little bit too internally focused? And we really saw the answer to really driving the cost out. Our outbound freight and our inbound freight weren't integrated. So we really will never portray the real accurate profile of what our network looked like. So we always put the carriers in a bit of a struggle because we never gave them the full picture. So one of the things we obviously had to do, and we've done over the last 3 years, is completely revamp our technology platform. We're now one integrated system across the piece, both inbound and outbound.
Tune in to our next show as we hear from our carrier executives about how the recession changed their companies forever and how they're now approaching rate negotiations.